I'm sharing with you some practical applications to using vibrational astrology. And I'm doing that with a chart of Frida Kahlo. If you don't know who Frida Kahlo is, you'll get to know her through this journey that I'm taking you on. And this is the first of a series of lessons that I will be putting on YouTube. So I'll number them 1, 2, 3, etc. So you know that if you're wanting to study along, you can study along through these lessons. I also am giving this as a lesson for a course that I'm teaching. The course is called the Vibrational Astrology Essentials Course. It is a 10-week course that will teach you from a very beginner level to how to look at astrology, how to interpret an astrology chart using vibrational astrology. Now, this course is part of a 10-semester program that I teach that will take you to becoming a professional astrologer if you're interested in becoming a professional astrologer. So this video will give you some techniques that I believe will probably be useful to you, even if you are an astrologer that's been doing astrology for years. And also, of course, it'll be useful to you if you're new to astrology, so you'll be able to learn the vibrational astrology model. So if you're interested in learning or taking a course or learning more, make sure that you follow my channel. Or if you're interested in taking a course, check out my website. It is SiriusAstrologySchool.com. Before I dig into Frida's chart, I want to mention that with any profession, we do have to have some particular tools, and astrology is no different than that, than any tool that we would need in any specific profession. So in astrology, we need to have software that will calculate where the planets are and how they're interacting with our chart and how where the transits are going. We need to have all that information at our fingertips. And yes, we can download apps that will give us that information. But if you're wanting to become a professional, I think it's important to have software that will be able to give you more than just the basics. You know, a lot of the apps I've seen, and I played with a lot of them, they're really basic or fundamental. It's not that they're bad, it's just that if you're wanting to dig in and be serious, then Sirius astrology software is definitely a tool that you could put in your toolbox. I always say to people that if you have the right tools, it makes you better at your profession. And I truly believe that that is the case with Sirius. The version that I use to make these calculations in this video is 4.1. So there are different versions to it. This is the most updated version as of making this video. And if you're interested in getting astrology software, I would encourage you to check out Sirius. You can go to the Cosmic Patterns website for more information, and that is found by going to astrosoftware.com. They do have other programs that are not quite as extensive as Sirius, and one of the beautiful things about their programs lineup is that even if you start at their very beginning program, which is called Pegasus, and then you move to the intermediate one, which is Kepler, and then to Sirius, if you do that, the interface is the same. So you're not relearning a whole new program every time you want to upgrade, and you can upgrade through those programs too. I just love the software, and I found it to be very useful for me in my own work. So I always want to share that, and I do use the software for the calculations I'm sharing with you in this video. The other tool that I want to mention is the Vibrational Astrology Study Guide. Here's a copy that I have of it. The Vibrational Astrology Study Guide was a study guide designed by Diane Amos, and it was created from the classes that she took with the founder of Vibrational Astrology, David Cochran. And I'm also a student of David Cochran. I'm a graduate of David Cochran's, and Diane was in a class after mine, and she wanted to learn and understand astrology more, so she created this beautiful study guide. In fact, there are 3 of them to date, but I believe she's working on a 4th one now. So these are sharing with you the framework of vibrational astrology. I will say that VA is continuing to grow as we make more discoveries. So those study guides are either going to be updated or continuations, or other books will be made about VA. So there is other information out there. This is just the book that I used for this particular video. And I'm mentioning it because as astrology is not a regulated practice, I could really tell you anything. I mean, if I wanted to be dishonest, I could really pretty much tell you anything. And unless you know what I'm talking about, you really would kind of just have to take my word for it. But I don't want you to do that. And I'm not telling you anything. I want you to know that I'm getting the information, the interpretations that I'm giving in this video. They're not coming verbatim from this book, but they're coming from this book, the framework of this book. So this is definitely a tool that you might want to check out if you're interested in learning vibrational astrology. So let's jump into the chart of Frida Kahlo. So here's her natal chart. I'm just giving it so you can follow along with me if you would like to with her chart. So here's the fundamental steps to interpreting using vibrational astrology. I just want to mention that this list is not exhaustive, that this video correlates to the Vibrational Astrology Essentials Course that I'm teaching that I mentioned. And there is a focus on basic fundamental steps here. So there's obviously a lot more to VA that I'm going to give you in a half-hour video or however long this video ends up being. So if you'd like to learn more, definitely check out my channel. Also, make sure that you check out my website too. So the first thing that I do is that I always check the birth information. I always want to check the time of the birth. And I always ask if it's from a birth certificate or not. So since Frida Kahlo is a person of history and I actually can't talk to her, she's passed, I would want to look to make sure and verify that her birth time is correct from another source. So Sirius, the Sirius program I use, has a huge database and I find it to be very accurate, but it's always good to check. So I used another website that I looked at to make sure that's also accurate and to make sure the timing was correct. So that is helpful because if the timing is off, then the chart will be off. So it's important to have the timing correct. If this is a client that I was talking to, I would ask the client to look at a birth certificate, because if we look at the we ask our mother or something like that, we don't always get the right answer. So it's important to look at a verifiable source, because moms are having they're giving birth. They're not necessarily thinking about what time it is. So I think that's an important part to first step. So the second thing we do after we pull up the natal chart is that we look and we make notes of these things. First is Ptolemaic aspects that are a degree or less. And I know that sounds, if you're already familiar with astrology, that might sound like, wow, only a degree? Yeah, only a degree. And the reason only a degree is because we would want to see things that are really tight. So this is important because I'm not saying if you have an aspect that's 2 degrees that it's not there. It's just not as strong as if you have an aspect that's 1 degree. So I would say 1 degree in orb. I should say that. So that's really important to know, that you want to look at the smallest orb things possible. And in the natal chart, that's especially important to look for something that's really small, a small orb. If you're interested in learning about aspects, I have done a video about aspects called The Sacred Geometry of Vibrational Astrology. You can learn about that in another video. I'll link it somewhere here or in the description box as well. So we're looking for 1 degree or less Ptolemaic aspects. And then we're also looking to see if any of these Ptolemaic aspects make what we call a pattern or a circuit. So pattern and circuit in this sense are used interchangeably. And what that is, very simple, is that it would be something like a grand trine. So that would make a 3-planet circuit or pattern within that chart. And we would want the orbs to be a degree or less in this circuit or pattern. And if there is something like that, it doesn't have to be a grand trine. It could be some other configuration, but it's important that each one of these configurations are either all hard aspects, which would be either conjunction, opposition, square, and so on, or all soft aspects, which could also be a conjunction, because conjunctions can work with both hard and soft aspects, and a sextile or a trine, so that would be the soft aspects. So again, I'll refer you to the aspect video so you learn a little bit more about those if you don't know what those are. So we want to look for a circuit that has 3 or more planet patterns like that in the natal chart that are a degree or less. I would take notes of this. If I'm looking at someone's chart, I'm going to do a consultation with them. I would sit with a chart and I would take these notes first of all, so I would know how to direct the conversation when we are communicating. The next thing I would do is I would pull up direct midpoint structures. And the direct midpoint structures, I made a video about direct midpoint structures as well if you're interested in learning more about those. But I would look at them that have an orb of a degree and a half, so a degree in 30 minutes or less. And then I would also look at if there are more than one midpoint structure that have the same two planets in it. I'll give examples of all these things as I go into the slides here. This has just happened to be what I'm looking for in the natal chart of someone, and this is before I even get into the vibration charts. After I'm done with that, because I use the Sirius software, I pull up what's called the harmonic patterns listing. If you use Sirius, it is under the pull down menu called listings. You go to harmonic patterns listings, a window pops up and you click 1 and you click 8 and then you'll get your listing. That will give you other ideas as to which vibrations you would want to pull up, which ones that are strong and have strong conjunctions in them. So I would look at that and then I would go ahead and I would open the other vibrations with 2 all the way to 13, and then I would open any subsequent ones that seem to be strong in the harmonic patterns listing. And then after I've got all of that opened, I would then go ahead and repeat the steps number 2 and 3 with the rest of the vibration charts. So I would see which ones are strong. I would repeat those steps with vibration 2, 3, 4, and so on. And I would make a notes to myself about what this means. I'm going to break it down to you and how I do this and the interpretations as well, so you'll get a demonstration of that. Here we go. We're going to break it down here. This is Frida's chart. Again, I would just check that the ascendant is the correct degree in minute, and you can do that. That would mean that you have the correct time of birth. So I look at the ascendant, I look at the sun and the moon. That's not necessarily a vibrational astrology thing. That's a Starlene thing. I do like to look at that because it just gives me a little bit of information, although it's not super strong information, but it's interesting that she does have her moon at the very end of Taurus, the 29th degree of Taurus. So let's just talk about Frida for a few minutes and talk about some of the biographical information about Frida so we can get to know Frida, so we can see if we see Frida in the astrology, right? She was an artist, a painter. She was born in Mexico of Mexican and German heritage, and I think that's an important part to Frida because as she grew into herself, she was very proud of her heritage. And most of her art that she created, of 143 of her paintings that are around, 55 of them were self-portraits. So she was someone that was really into expressing herself, her innermost self on the canvas. That was something about Frida that was really important. When Frida was 6 years old, she contracted polio, so she was left disabled. She had a limp, but she never let that stop her. She was still pursuing life, wonderfully. She was still active and trying to do things. The unfortunate thing that happened to her when she was in her late teens is she was in a very bad accident. The accident was a trolley car hit the bus that she was in, so it was very bad. She ended up having a fractured spine and many surgeries after that accident, so that was a really tragic thing for Frida. However, that didn't stop Frida from pursuing what she wanted to do. In fact, that's when she picked up painting, and that's what drove her to getting herself out onto the canvas. So this was really important, an important part to Frida kind of transforming her own personal self into something that she shared with other people, where she expressed herself, her own self in some way. She was married to a famous muralist. His name was Diego Rivera. They were known to have a tumultuous relationship. In fact, they did divorce at one point, and Frida was really depressed during that time. She had some more health issues during that time, even had a foot amputated during that time. She also did remarry Diego, and she stayed married with him till the rest of her life after that. She did pass away at a young age, and she did try to attempt suicide a couple times because she was depressed. She had a lot of problems that were believed to stem from her issues when she was young, getting polio, the accident, and also the difficult relationship that she was in. So this is interesting. These are parts to herself that she shared pretty freely and openly as well. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna dig into Frida's natal aspects. So this is Frida's natal chart, her one vibration chart. This is, I've circled the aspects here that I'm going to talk about that are 1 degree or less. So as you see up here at the top left of the chart, she has the sun here at 13 degrees and 23 minutes of Cancer, and directly opposite of that at the bottom right of the chart, you can see I circled Mars at 13 degrees and 24 minutes. So this is actually a 1 minute orb aspect. So this is really strong. She also has the sun again up at the top, conjunct Neptune, also circled, and there's a 59-minute orb there. There's 59 minutes, so it's almost a degree. But remember, I'm looking for a degree or less in here for these patterns or these aspects in the natal chart. She also has Mars opposition Neptune, and that is exactly a 1 degree orb. So these 3 planets actually create a very strong aspect circuit or pattern, if you will, in the natal chart. Now, this is really important to Frida because this is something that is really talking about who Frida is on a fundamental level, because the natal chart is her on a fundamental level. It's anybody on a fundamental level, but having a pattern like this in your natal chart is not something that's common. Most people, in fact, don't even have an aspect that is exactly a degree or less. A lot of people don't. I shouldn't say most. I don't know the statistic on that, but I will say that a lot of people don't even have an aspect of a degree or less in their natal chart with 2 planets, let alone 3. And this is 3 planets, so this is really speaking to Frida. So we'll see if she embodies that. So I am also mentioning, and I circled up here in this blue color, that she has a conjunction with Pluto and Venus, and that has a 36-minute orb, so it's just over a half a degree. And although there's not a third planet with this one, that is a strong conjunction. It is under a degree, so I would make note of it. I think that's an important thing to look at with Frida as well. So let's go ahead and to interpret this. And how we're going to interpret this is I'm going to share with you the interpretation of each of the 2 planets, and then we're going to piece it together in the vibration, which is the natal chart. The natal chart is also the first vibration. So before I start getting into the interpretation, I want to share with you the energy process and behavior symptoms of the planets and explain to you what those are so that you understand where I'm coming at with this. So the energy process means it's a fundamental planetary energy. This represents the core function and the purpose and motivation of the planet. The energy processes of the planets are very raw. They're the underlying forces that shape an individual's inner landscape. And it's what drives their motivation and pushes them forward. So energy processes are different than behavior symptoms because behavior symptoms are the observable manifestations of these energy processes. And behavior symptoms are how the fundamental energies translate into actions, attitudes, and different patterns that can be seen and experienced in the person's life. So things such as archetypes are birthed from the energy process. The archetypes are not necessarily the energy process, but they are birthed from the energy process. I'll give you a really easy example to understand this. So if you think about Venus archetypally can be the lover. Venus can be also art. Venus can be beauty. It can be any of those things, right? And we're not sure which one of those things it is. so that we can figure this out, so that we could understand this on a vibrational level and understand how this is actually functioning in a person's life. We have boiled down each one of the planets and the vibrations, but right now I'm talking of the planets, into a simple energy process. So the energy process of Venus is the attraction to beauty. That attraction to beauty can be interpreted in different ways, such as art, such as love. So as you can see, if you boil art and love down, you'll be able to see the attraction to beauty there. And this is really fundamental to the framework of understanding vibrational astrology, because if you always use the energy processes, you're not guessing which of the behavior symptoms are going to happen. If you just understand the energy process and relate that to the person you're talking to, or you're looking at, or you're researching, you'll be able to see how that's actually manifesting in behavior symptoms in their life. So this is really important and it's a key part to VA that makes it different than other systems of astrology, because it really helps you to understand internal motivations and also external expressions of it. The internal motivations are the energy processes, and the external expressions of it are potentials or things like that the person can reach for. There are also energy processes and behavior symptoms of the natal chart, of the houses. It is that way we've worked with VA to have energy processes and behavior symptoms of everything. That helps to simplify things and make things easier and elegant to understand. So the natal chart, like I said, is the one vibration chart. So the natal chart is the energy process of the natal chart is an inner sense of what is essential to the person. It is a self-directed life. Some of the behavior symptoms that might come from the natal chart are self-directed behavior, something that reflects the core characteristics of the person. Also, with one vibration or natal chart, there is a very strong inclination to rely on some personal experiences. It's also, the one vibration chart is often more self-referenced than other vibrations. It's more self-referenced and less influenced by other people. That's something really distinct about the one vibration chart. There's also a strong sense of what you see in the natal chart or the vibration chart, that it would be evident from an early age. So that's also part of the one vibration chart. Now I want to talk for a moment about vibrational nuances. In vibrational astrology, it's important to remember that we would want to interpret the planet, be it a circuit or a midpoint, in the vibration that it resides in. So we want to make sure that we're using the vibration and explaining the vibration that they show up in, so that they function in that vibration, the planets or the planet circuits or the midpoints. This is important because the vibration shades the nuances and the behaviors and expressions of the planets. Each one of the vibrations brings a unique lens, and this shapes how we understand the energies of the planets and how they interact within our chart. So this is an important thing to keep in mind here when working with vibrational astrology. So Frida Kahlo really is a self-referenced masterpiece. As we looked at, we saw that circuit that we were talking about, and I'm going to get into the interpretation of that in just a moment. But I just want to put in your mind a quote that she actually said, and I thought that this quote really spoke to the one vibration chart. She said, "I paint myself because I'm often alone and I'm the subject that I know best." So this quote really speaks about her essence and the mirroring and self-referenced energy that we were talking about with the one vibration chart. This is important because if Frida didn't display some of these one vibration energies, we'd be wondering what's going on. And in VA, the beauty of VA is that if the person isn't displaying these energies, we want to encourage them to, one, understand that they're there, that there's something they can do with it, and two, maybe even help them to pull some things out of themselves they may not know are there. So if Frida came to me and was saying, I'm kind of bored, I'm kind of not happy, I don't know what I'm doing with myself, I would be looking at her chart and I would see this Sun, Mars, Neptune, and I would give her some guidance as to really she needs to figure out what that dream is for her. So let's go ahead and break this down so you can understand what I'm saying. The energy, process, and behavior symptoms of the Sun and Mars. And the Sun and Mars is a clear and present force that needs to achieve and do something. There's a desire to accomplish something tangible, something real. This is translated into behavior symptoms by demonstrating a lot of action and a strong desire to get things done quickly. The Sun Mars is really impatient. There is a focus on doing rather than planning, and this is really important for the Sun Mars person. So this is something that is inherent in Frida's chart, because remember, the Sun Mars opposition was only a 1-minute orb. The next one is the energy, processes, and behavior symptoms of Sun Neptune. And this brings a clear and present sense of attraction and wonder and magic of dreams and visions and ideals to the person. The person with the Sun Neptune has a childlike optimism. There's a feeling of being fascinated or full of wonder, really being enchanted by life. The Sun Neptune person really needs to have a sense of magic. That magic it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be exotic. It just needs to have a magic to the person with the Sun Neptune energy. And this kind of thing could be a meal that they eat, something that they enjoy doing. It can be a special song that they have, or a certain place or certain people that they're around. There's a magic that happens. It's like they bring this enchantment into their experience, into their everyday life. So this is really something important to a Sun Neptune person. If the Sun Neptune person doesn't have something that they're dreaming about and they're wanting to be enchanted by, life can feel drab. Life can feel down. So this is something that's important to the Sun Neptune person to experience. So the energy, process, and behavior symptoms of Mars Neptune is the force to accomplish one's dreams. There is a need to express the magic of your dreams when there's a Mars-Neptune energy. There is a desire to see wonder and magic in everyday life, and there's the ability to see that in the little things. The Mars-Neptune person can be infectious with their excitement. They can be someone that attracts others to them to help to inspire their dream to become a reality. Success is likely if the pursuit is something that they're really truly chasing after because they want it, as opposed to doing it because someone else wants them to. This is important because if frustration sets in, because it is Mars, right? If frustration sets in, then that can make the magic kind of dissipate. And that's not good for a Mars Neptune person, because they want to chase the dream. And this is really important because as the Mars Neptune person would chase their dream, they would also want to then be fulfilling another dream. It's like they constantly want to keep chasing some dream, something that they're really after, some magic that they're after. So let's go ahead and see, do we see this Sun, Mars, Neptune energy in Frida's chart? Yes, we do. The natal chart pattern that we just talked about is vividly reflected in her relentless drive to achieve. She achieves what? She achieves her artistic vision. The Sun, making that conjunction to her present moment, drives her to deeply reflect on self-expression. Mars fuels her determination. She has an impatience behind her that she wants to create something tangible. She wants to make something impactful. The fact that she was also interested in the Mexican Communist Party, that was important and reflected in her art as well. And this is something that she really wanted to do. This brought her magic and wonder. And that was also the Neptune energy. So as she was excited to have the magic and wonder, this combination kind of transformed her personal pain into something powerful, something that's visionary, something that really captivated herself and also captivated people. And she embraced reality within her imagination. So this aspects, this pattern that we just talked about, I see that it shows the underlying motivation for Frida's art. But what about the style that she made? What about the style? Let's see if we can see that too. Now I'm going to talk about the direct midpoint structures, and I'm going to talk about two different sets of them. This is the first one. So I've circled the planets again. First, they're on the right, the midpoint structures that are 1.5 degrees or less that I found in her natal chart. I just put them all up on the screen. I circled the midpoint structure in the chart that you see. As you can see, Neptune is at the far or opposite midpoint of the Mars and Uranus midpoint. And this is at a 24-minute orb. So this is a very close orb. It is less than 0.5 degree. Then she also has Mars at the Sun-Neptune midpoint. So she's got it going back both ways. And that's a 30-minute orb, which is very strong as well. She also has the Sun at the Uranus-Mars midpoint. And that is 1 degree and 22 minutes. Now that's a little stronger than I would get super excited about if it was just one thing. But the thing of it is that it has the Sun and Mars in it, right? So if you remember when I laid out the guidelines for us, we're looking for midpoint structures that have 2 of the same planets in them. So this midpoint structure has Sun and Mars in it, and the midpoint structure we just talked about before has Sun and Mars in it, as you can see. So these are really important. And then if you go back to the first one has Neptune and Mars in it. And then the second one has Neptune and Mars in it. So these are connected to each other. And then so is this one as well. So all these planets connected to each other are emphasizing and giving another layer to what's going on with the aspects in her natal chart. So how do the direct midpoint structures work? They emphasize nuanced interactions between the planets that they're connecting with in the vibration that they're with. So because this is an aspect pattern in Frida's natal chart, it's further emphasized by it also being a midpoint structure. Midpoint structures are not always aspects as well. So Frida got it twice here with the midpoint structures and the aspects as well, the circuit that she had that we identified. So some of the tips that I want to share with you here is that midpoint structures don't always aspect each other, but they do in Frida's chart. And also the energy processes and behavior symptoms that we discussed would be the same for midpoint structures as they are with the aspect patterns. So they're the same. We're not making up new definitions for the planets here. So let's just think about this midpoint structure with these 4 planets. We talked about the Sun, Mars, and Neptune in the aspect pattern, but I'll just go through them one more time because we're going to add Uranus in here because Uranus was added to these midpoints. So the Sun connects us to the present moment. It regulates our consciousness. Mars embodies our drive, our ambition. It fuels our energy to achieve and to take action. Neptune represents ideals, dreams, and visions, and Uranus is the force that acts in the moment without regard to the past or the future. It is a spontaneous energy. It's the desire to spontaneously do something. And what is it wanting to do? It's wanting to chase after the dream. That's the Mars-Neptune. So this is what Uranus is propelling Frida to do, to chase after her dream, to chase after her Mars-Neptune sun. So let's look at her direct midpoint structures. This is the second set that I'm going to mention. So I've circled it over here in green on the chart and in purple or pink, whatever color that is. The first one is Venus at the midpoint of Moon Jupiter at 44-minute orb. And the Venus, Moon, Jupiter, why is this important? Because it's not aspecting each other. If you look at the chart, you might be wondering, why is this important? This is important because the angle from Jupiter to Venus is the same as the angle from Venus to the moon. And in our research, we have found that when two planets, or three planets for this matter, have the same angle as each other, that's powerful. And that's what creates a midpoint structure. So these angles are they're almost exact. They're 44 minutes from being exact, but these angles are important to Frida. Also, she has Pluto at the midpoint of Moon Jupiter. So as you see from the other one, she had Moon Jupiter and Venus at the midpoint, and she has Pluto at the midpoint of Moon Jupiter as well. So Venus and Pluto, remember, they were connected to each other in her natal chart. They had a 36-minute orb, so they are aspecting each other, and they are creating a 4-planet pattern here with these two midpoint structures. As you can see here, I've circled them all, and again, like I said, it's because the angles are the same. And so this is really an important part to Frida, and I'll explain to you why I feel that way. So here's the planet energy processes of the planets in this midpoint structure. Venus is our attraction to beauty. Moon is bringing the past into the present, regulating the themes and the elements that we are aware of. Jupiter is the desire to grow big, the force that makes us grow big and expand. And Pluto is the deep past that expresses itself in a forceful, sometimes compulsive, or even obsessive way. So there is this strong desire to bring something from the past and bring some beauty from the past and grow through it or grow it. So this is her expressing herself on canvas, painting these pictures of herself on canvas of her history, of the deeper inner things that are going on within Frida. Do we see these midpoints expressed in her life? We do. We definitely do. With Venus, her artistic expression and her personal aesthetics are highlighting beauty in all forms. She was one of those people that they even call her iconic. I've seen that written about her many different times while I was doing this research about her. The moon, she is incorporating and processing her past experiences, her cultural heritage into her art, and that is really important to Frida. Jupiter, she expands her personal narratives into universally resonant themes, and she's engaging in philosophical and political discourse. That's part of her art. And Pluto she's channeling this deep, deep emotional energy into her work by expressing it in some compulsion and intensity within her art. This is evident when you look at some of her art, and this piece of art is called The Two Fridas. I took this screenshot from the fridakahlo.org website. And these are quotes that I took from the website as well, but this definitely explains the Moon, Venus, Jupiter, Pluto energy within Frida. Initially, when she talked about this painting, she had said that the painting was of her and of someone she knew a long time ago, which I thought that was interesting. But later, she admitted that she was expressing her desperation and loneliness when she separated and divorced Diego. So she did, like I said, she did remarry him, but she was expressing her loneliness and separation with it. I mean, look at this art. She's talking about, in this art, this is speaking to her heart. Her heart is raw and open on the left image of her. She even has the scissors in her hand, and looks like she's bleeding. Her heart is in pain. So she's really expressing that Pluto openness in her heart. You know, she's hurting. And then there's a healed version of her on the right. So I thought that was really interesting. And it was interesting, too, because she said initially she said that this painting was her and someone she knew from the past. So maybe it's like her reflecting herself in the past. So I think this is really interesting. There was also another quote on that website that said, "The stormy sky filled with agitated clouds may reflect Frida's inner turmoil." And I thought that that was very interesting and appropriate for Frida, given the things that she went through and given, you know, her state of mind when her and Diego separated. So here's another piece of art from her, and this one is called The Broken Column. I got this image from the Wikipedia article and these quotes as well from the Wikipedia article. Many of her self-portraits showed pain and suffering that she dealt with, and that was the focus of her work because that was what she dealt with. She was getting her inner self, her self-directed energy, so that's the one vibe, the natal vibe energy, out onto the paper. And she's doing that through the planets that were aligning in her one vibration. So the other thing says her solitary presence on a cracked and barren landscape symbolizes both isolation and external forces which have impacted her life. As an earthquake might fissure the landscape, Kahlo's accident broke her body. And it goes on to say Kahlo's nude torso is split, replicating the ravine-laced earth behind her and revealing a crumbling, iconic column in place of her spine. Her face looks forward unflinchingly, though tears course down her cheeks. This is so Moon Pluto. This is this deep difficulty that she went through, and she transformed by creating this piece of art in front of her. This is her way of expressing this, not just Moon Pluto, but also Jupiter and Venus in there as well. I mean, she's a famous artist. I know she's passed, but she's a famous artist. Many people know who she is, you know, and that Venus, that creation of beauty that she's wanting to share with people, to share the pain and stuff that she's dealt with, I think that speaks very deeply to these planets. So this image, obviously, it's not a self-portrait of Frida, but the image, the name of it is Viva la Vida, and the title of the work is a tribute to life. Viva la Vida translates into long live life, and it's interesting to me because in the front piece of Watermelon, you can see her inscribing it Viva la Vida, and then she wrote her name Frida Kahlo underneath it. And this was the last painting that she had made and finished 8 days before she actually passed away. So I got this image from the artsandculture.google.com website, and there was a quote on the site that I thought was interesting. It said, "This may have been her way of saying she neared death," or ironic commentary on life, a life filled with pain, because as we know, she dealt with a lot of pain throughout her life. And it also went on to say that watermelons relate to the traditional Mexican Day of the Dead, when relatives imagine their dead feasting on watermelons and other favorite foods. So this was interesting. I thought it was a very cool expression for her to be able to share something like this and even leave a little bit of mystery behind, because maybe whether she knew it or not that she was passing or she was coming to that space, she did leave an impression with this particular painting as well. So let's go ahead and review what we learned here. I want to mention too that not every natal chart will have these below specific configurations, but these methods can be applied to any vibration chart. If you're using a vibration chart other than the first vibration chart or the natal chart, you would use a different orb system, which I'm not going to get into here, but I will just tell you quickly. The orbs would go 16 degrees for a conjunction, and then you would half it for an opposition, so that would be 8 degrees, and then you would half it for a square, and so on and so forth. So that would be how you would use the orbs instead of the 1 degree orb we were looking for in the natal chart. In the vibration charts, we would look for bigger orbs. So I will go into that deeper in other videos, but that's just basically how we would use them differently. So you can apply these same methods to any vibration. I didn't know when I was digging into Frida's chart that I was not really going to have to go up in vibration to be able to see her, because she has such a strong natal chart. But I let the astrology guide me. So instead of like allowing myself to assume something and look there, I think it's more important to let the astrology guide you. That's why having a system and how you look at the charts is really good too. So here's what we did. We identified the circuits, the 3 planet patterns with hard or soft aspects, and then within the allowable orbs, we identified the midpoint structures that were less than 1.5 degrees, and then we also identified the midpoint structures that had 2 planets, the same 2 planets in each midpoint structure. The next thing we did was we identified the energy processes of the planets and the behavior symptoms of the planets. And then we looked at her biographical information and we assessed the effectiveness of these energy processes. Do they work? Is she living her chart? If she's not living her chart, how can we motivate her to do so? Obviously, we can't do that because she's not here anymore. But if she was a client coming to me or someone looking for a consultation, this would be in the way in which I would get that information and how I would guide her. So in conclusion, vibrational astrology gives us a very profound understanding. Using this model, we can gain valuable insights into an individual's potential. As I demonstrated in these slides, we can see how these energies manifested in Frida's life. We can also see that the underpinnings of these energies that drove her vision, and also the vision in which she displayed as well. So the art that she displayed, we could see why and how she created that art. So this analysis highlights her unique talents and also underscores the intricate beauty of vibrational astrology. It helps to uncover deeper layers of Frida that we might not have already known about her. So I think it's really important to let the astrology guide you, because it knows more than we do. So I appreciate you watching my video. If you have any questions, or if you would like to learn a certain technique, or you would like me to use a certain person's chart, let me know, and we'll see you on the next one.